All right. Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Thursday, January 6th. Well, theme of the day, I would say. Before I get to that, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through, of course, is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. The video is for education purposes only. So yes, theme of the day. A lot of chop out there. I will go through a couple of names that I saw some bright spots for the day. But they were quick moves, and how I kind of, well, I guess we'll say how I kind of left off yesterday, the end of day video. So I was pretty negative, right? I was basically saying that that there's a lot of damage in some of these charts, and we kind of broke support in a couple different areas that I went through yesterday, specifically on the 1 hour S&P chart. And I was not positive at all. I was quite negative, and I was trying to say something positive in yesterday's video, of which the only thing that I could really say is that if you can stay out of this market a bit and let some of this price action do go where it wants to go, there might be some good opportunities that will arise from it. And again, I mentioned yesterday, it was January 6th I'm sorry, January 5th. Today's the 6th. It's still the beginning of the year. So, in my opinion, give yourself some time. Don't get, and I'm trying to do this too. This is not easy for me as well, because I'm having a little bit of a tough time the beginning of this year too. I couple trades today, just I wasn't watching them as close as I should have, and they caused some major pain for me today. So I try to always lead by example, but sometimes it's very difficult to do that. But what I'm trying to do too is just not get myself in a really bad place or worse than it is. And just realize that we're right in the beginning of the year. Putting yourself in a hole in the beginning of the year is not a fun thing, not a fun place to be. So that's my, that is kind of a little bit of a continuation from yesterday. This morning in the TTG member pre-market session, I looked at a couple things and I said, hey, I really want to see how this day is going to go. I thought that we could kind of get, maybe another flush out in the beginning of the day. We did that. We came back, and some things, had a really healthy bounce to them, but there really was no follow through. And if you look at where the indices finished for the day, the S&P still finished down for the day, down 10 basis points. The Qs did the same. I think they got up close to not even 0.5%. I kept on seeing on my screen like up 35 basis points, right, which is less than 0.5%. And I was like, okay, let's see if we could build from here. Let's see if we can build from here, and we just couldn't. IWM ran into some support resistance too. I'll show you that in just a second. Bonds, we'll start with the bonds, because I'd like to just make sure to mention them, because I think a lot of what's been going on has been this move in the yields and the long yield. So you do have a little bit of a hammer bar, depending on, you could look at TLT, which is different duration than what I'm looking at here, right? This is 30-year bonds. The duration is much less than that for when you look at TLT, which is, the long bond ETF, but that's plus 20, right? So for example, like TLT, if you look at this, right? Sorry, I won't spend much time here. I didn't want to get sidetracked with this, but it's the plus 20 year is TLT. I'm only pointing this out, and you can see the duration's about 19 years. So much different than the one that I have in front of you, which is the 30-year. I did talk about this yesterday, that we took out this a few of these version point of controls, and I thought that we could get a bounce today, but it really wasn't that big of a bounce. Well, in fact, this was still down on the day, but where it's more apparent is in the TLT. You could see that bounce there, basically coming back to this last version point of control takeout, and this was positive for the day. This was up 25 basis points and basically closed on the highs of the day. All right. Also economics. Let's cover this really quickly. I don't know if this is really going to change things too much tomorrow as we get a monthly jobs report, right? They're expecting a pretty low number, 442, right, for job creations and private payrolls. is going to be 400. Today we got ISM services, which was less than expected. I don't know why the estimate was so high that they were looking for 67. You got to put this in context. Above 50 is expansionary, right? So you could see the expectations there versus survey. So again, I don't know who comes up with these estimates, and I guess whoever is in charge of ISM, but 67 is crazy. That's a very, very high number that they were expecting. So we got 62, which I guess is lower than the previous, but you could see going back to 2012, just interesting. I think the ISM services number, so off the highs, but let's see if we can find what this was previously. Yeah, it was a 69. So this is, I don't know if I would say that this is like starting to kind of come in to, other than today, 62 versus a 69 and a 66 the prior 2 months. But I mean, this is a really hot number, right? These two. So I think anything above 60 is still very good, but in any event, I just wanted to cover that because I thought that was interesting statistics that came out today in the economics. So yeah, going back to what we talked about yesterday, here was the break of the 1 hour value area, and we're just a lot of chop. And if we don't get out of this range, then I think that we could possibly go down further, right, and go down to 4658, right? Because right now this looks like a bear flag at this point, and the fact that we kept on seemed to be trying to go today, and it's just not in, it wasn't in the cards today, right? So here was the washout again. The word that comes to mind, and I'm going to go over some other charts too that I think come to mind too. The same word, which is tricky. I mean, this is really tough. I didn't do anything in the first 15 minutes or so because I wanted to see how this would shake out. But, first 15 minutes up and then like a massive swing down and then a recovery, chop. We got to the highs today, right around 1240. I mentioned in the midday video, we do a lot of stuff at Tribeca Trade Group. We do a pre-market session and I do a midday video, and I was going through the midday video as fast as I could because I'm like, hey, maybe we got something going on here. The one disclaimer that I said was, well, keep in mind, between 12 and 115, 130, it's the lowest volume of the day. That's not where we really want to see the rally occur. On the lowest, the least conviction part of the day, right? There's nobody, so it's almost like it's almost like they stopped shorting at that time, and the indices are floating back up. But again, this is, I mean, look at where we closed versus where we started the day. If that's not the definition of chop, then I don't know what is. Similarly with NASDAQ futures, it's the same thing, up very, very slightly for the day. So again, nothing to really, the expression that I use all the time is nothing to really hang your hat on, right? It looks like we did get into value there a little bit for the small caps. But stalled here and could not, get very far inside value, right? Big wide value area because of yesterday's price action, right? The price action and the volume dictates the width of the value area, and that was such a big range. It was a tough time for that to overcome that. So you can see tomorrow's value area much more normal than it was today. All right, so that's the indices. Troubling, I would say, that there wasn't really much of a move today, and it kind of just we're on hold a bit, and we'll see if we can kind of hang in there or if we've got another leg lower. I don't know the answers to that question, and I don't position if I don't have a strong feeling, right? You can kind of tell by my voice, maybe yesterday's video or today's video, that I don't have a lot of conviction here. And if I don't have a lot of conviction, then I try not to really put too much exposure on. I even like stop myself out of a couple trades that weren't working very well. Here's a trade. I think I forgot to bring up the trade blotter yesterday, but just in case you wanted to see, because I like to show these, every day. You know, this was a trade that I put on yesterday, stopped out of it, APD. It's really tricky stuff. Nucor was a trade that I hit on the calls the other day and then left, converted that over to a stock position. I think I took one target at 125 and just decided to kind of bail on the balance. I just don't want to be too heavy into this. You know, being heavy into this market, and if it goes against you, you're just digging yourself a bigger hole. And at this point, I view the risk higher or more troublesome than the reward at this point. All right, a couple things that I thought were interesting for the day. Right, so again, you know, like I mentioned, you know, here was a couple things that I thought were kind of notable. Right, you know, Target was all the way down to 223 today on a broker downgrade. I think Dollar General got downgraded too. So I mean, like, hey, this moved nicely. I didn't catch this one. By the time I noticed the move, it was too late. So be it. DraftKings, I guess they're getting approval in New York City finally for sports gambling. This had a nice move today too, but I don't, you know, the trend in this has been like, hey, if you could catch this for a day trade, but you know, look at it. It doesn't, you know, you got to bounce in a downtrend. 2666 would be the level to watch there. What else did I have written down here? Affirm was another one too. You know, a little bounce for the day. You know, maybe that we could work off that hammer bar, but you know, from the lows, right, where this thing bottomed out, 75 to 80 bucks, it's still a good trade, you know, for the day. But again, like right now, there's so much damage on some of these charts. I think, you know, looking at these things from the perspective of a day trade versus that these things are going to turn around is, from in my perspective, is much better looking. So you know, that's kind of what my frame of mind was today, was to day trade a little bit, and you can kind of see me doing that. CVX, you know, and I would say, you know, the one thing that's kind of still going here very nicely, the regional banks had a huge day today, up 3.7%. So they went out, they made it out to the highs. Energy was still strong again. I didn't like this. You know, I thought this was a good place to kind of sell some energy exposure. I still hung on to CBX and got another target with this one. I was also looking at Conoco yesterday. This had a nice day today, up 3.8%. So there are things like this. Again, it's you know, and in my opinion, it's tough to go after some of these value names after the move that they've had, but you know, they're still acting very well. So who am I to say that the trend is stopping here? I mean, that's a really nice breakout of value there for COP. I thought what was interesting the last couple of days, and here's where it's kind of tricky. You know, you look at the materials, which were very hot, and we almost took this out, but this is where you're going to see some names, and that's why it's tough to really position into the energy names, is because some areas of the market are doing this right when they go to break out. You know, 47, 48, that's a big move for this, and down 1.47 today. So that's a pretty nasty move there that you're seeing in the metals and mining. And similar, I thought the materials move was outstanding in the beginning of the day yesterday, and that's the same type of look to it too, right? ITB is another one. Now I know interest rates are not so good for the builders, so that kind of, you know, I kind of stayed out of this group, but you know, this will be an area, you know, and I don't love that this thing couldn't make a new high here. A little bit of an RSI divergence there too. So again, these, you just kind of sit back and watch a little bit. One area that I'm watching is healthcare. Right, healthcare had this really nice move. You've now seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I almost took a trade here, but I'm kind of maybe giving it one more day to kind of position in some healthcare. There was some nasty stuff going on with managed care. That was one of the trades that I got caught in this morning. But managed care names got hit really hard on this Humana warning this morning. All right, so let's see. 135 would be an interesting level to watch. Again, not the best setup right here because it's inside value, but that's what this group is doing. You know, perchance maybe if this 134 VPOC gets taken out, I may take a look at this group. Zoetis was one name too that saw some call accumulation on the tape, and I did follow that trade. I took that trade today. These were the July 220 calls. The last time that I saw Zoetis was probably about 3 or 4 months ago, somewhere in there. And this trade really worked out. It was right after earnings, right? That we saw big calls that happened. So that was a while ago. That was November 3rd, and that was a great signal. So different looking chart at this point, but someone really liked the July calls. It looked like there was a total of 5,000 that traded 220 calls. So I followed along with that trade, and I didn't do much more than a starter because it's got to get back inside value, right? So you know, I may add to that trade if I see it kind of you know, coming back. But nice looking positioning out there, and again, they gave it time on this trade. A couple other things too. You know, I was looking at the cyberspace today. I noticed, so again, this was where I was like really just paying attention to the tape rather than trading. But this Palo Alto, really nice move. And did I trade this one? Yeah, I did, and I was out pretty quickly, right? I didn't mess around with this tape, but this acted, you know, very, very well. All right, Palo Alto. So I did decide to take that one. I also tried to take I took Fortinet, which is also, you know, one of my favorite names in the space, but you know, it just wasn't acting the way I wanted it to, and I took it off at the end of the day. Again, dealing with low conviction right now. I tried trading a little bit of BABA. I want to talk about this group for a second. Right? Somebody asked me in the trading room, they said, why are you taking this trade off? And I'm like, well, it's in a downtrend, and I don't really feel, I don't have a lot of conviction in it. I don't have a lot of conviction in how many times am I using that word, in names that are in downtrends. Now, you know, maybe this is trying to put in a bottom here. It's possible, right? It made another, you know, down here when it almost made a new low. The RSI did not, so maybe that's an indication. If you look at the Chinese internet group, right, there's still a VPOC that kind of sitting down here, but it might be something worth to watch. You know, maybe these Chinese internet names are going to put in a bottom. I'm on the weekly chart. Right. So when you look at the weekly chart, the value area is for the one that's lit up is for the whole year. Right. So we're just in January. I would watch this 35.6 level. Maybe something can kind of change here and we can bounce off of this. Remember what happened last year. We were hanging around the bottom of value for a while, broke, and then, you know, just completely just continued to go down from the break of support there. But yeah, I'm interested. I have nothing on in this space, right? Notice another VPOC being taken out, but you know, the group, why I'm spending a little bit of time here is because the group was the best performer that I saw on my screen next to the regional banks, up at 4.7% for the day, right? So strong there along with the banks, and interesting Chinese internets. All right, that's it. You know, in terms of names that I'm watching, I think did I mention Caterpillar too? I thought Caterpillar acted pretty well. I like the weekly chart of Caterpillar. You heard me talk about that earlier in the week. We'll see if that closes above 220. You know, and I think that can make, you know, maybe another, what's the level that I mentioned earlier in the week? 237. So maybe another $17 up there. All right, guys, that is it for today's video. Try to go through a couple things that I'm finding interesting, but I think the main theme right now with this price action, because I'm not convinced yet that the downside is that we're not going to see more downside, is patience. Patience is the key, and just realizing that we're right in the beginning of the year. So, you know, there shouldn't be much pressure you know, in terms of like, hey, what's going to happen for this whole year? I think try to be objective and let some of these moves happen without trying to be in every single one of them. Easier said than done, of course. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.